In this Sean Speaks episode, I get to speak to you from my heart about an important part of parenting, family life, and a parent's mental health and mindset. I want to help you thrive in how you speak to your kids and how you speak to yourself. Sean Speaks is a live teaching I did with a Zoom room filled with my VIP members. It's interactive, it's spontaneous, it's raw and unedited. If you'd like to go deeper with me, visit my website. This morning I woke up and I looked at my social media feed and I saw that a video that I posted about 24 hours ago is on its path to going viral. It has, somewhere probably around like 500,000 views now. And that means if that happens in 24 hours, it means it's probably just going to go viral. Mega viral. It's going to be seen by millions. If you haven't, you can watch the video now. You can just turn to any of my social media because I made a video about the incident that happened during the Super Bowl when this star football player named Travis Kelce comes up to his coach and he gets into his face. He yells at him. He bumps him and the coach has to stumble back. And as we were all watching that, many of us were very shocked. We were very disturbed by what we saw. There's a lot of people out there now that have been really hurt, really affected, disgusted by what they saw. They didn't like it because here we are, children are watching this video. Young athletes are watching the Super Bowl, and everybody knows that this guy is dating the world's probably the most famous person in the world right now. And it just triggers so many people. We get afraid for our teenage daughters because we're thinking, what the heck? Is this normal? Are they going to think this is normal? We get afraid for our teenage sons being like, hey, is this normal? You're going to go up to your coach this way. We see the coach not respond at all. The player is not benched. Nothing has happened. We have no idea what is going on. Some of us are triggered because it takes us back to a time in our lives when a strong man came up to us and spit in our face, grabbed our arm, touched us, cussed us out. And so, as you might have seen all over social media, there is a ton of videos saying how horrible this action was. And this is the problem with our society's strong alpha men coming in here and just thinking they're entitled and they can just go through this and they treat people like crap and then they move on and they get to play in the game. And there's just all this negativity. And I wasn't trying to make a controversial video, but what I found after making videos for, 5 years now with many like viral videos is that the videos that are kind of controversial are usually the ones that even go mega viral. And so I wasn't planning on making a controversial video, but if you have read the comments on this video, there is a lot of comments. So essentially, here's what I do in the video. I say, hey, I think we can learn a lot about parenting from watching this video. Now think back for a moment, everybody, about a time when your kid came to you and they were deregulated. They were nasty. Maybe they were hitting you because they're 5 years old, or maybe they are calling you names when they're 8 years old. Maybe they're saying, I hate you. Maybe they're throwing things at you, near you. These are all normal things that normal, lovely kids do. Maybe they are getting in your face. Maybe they are cussing at you, saying you're a horrible parent. I don't know what world you live in, but the world that I've been living in with my own teen kids, my friends' children, my friends' teenagers, the people that I work with, this is all just normal, common things. Now, does it make it right? No, it doesn't make it right. I'm not going to spend more than 5 seconds thinking on this. I'm going to be defending Travis Kelce here. If you're here with me live in my VIP membership, I'm going to share a couple thoughts with you. And then I would love to have a discussion with you about this, about what we can learn from parenting after watching this video. So here's a couple things that I wanted to highlight. In the social media video that I made, I say, here's 3 main points. I'm not going to go through it because you can watch it for yourself. It's like, hey, the first thing is like the reason why that this grown man, this 34-year-old man does this to this coach is because he actually really trusts the coach, which I do believe everything I said in the video, which is true. This player has only played for one coach. He's played for 10 years. 10 years. Now, football is one of the most violent sports and cultures that we have. I play pickup basketball about 3 days a week. It's very violent. Basketball is a violent game. I rarely walk out there with blood, with wounds. And football is way more violent. Sports can be very, very violent. When I'm playing basketball with these huge grown men, sometimes we say things. Sometimes we get physical. Sometimes we act out. But that's what you do in that culture. I would never in a million years act that way around my own wife or children. It's a different world. It's a different culture. And if I were, it would be so wrong and outlandish. It would be so intolerable. What I said is that the reason why Travis Kelce did that is because he trusts the coach, which is what I believe to be true. The reason why our kids act this way in front of us and they don't act this way out there in the real world is because we are their person. They trust us. They know they don't have to be their best version of themselves. Now, what so many parent coaches get wrong is that they just excuse this behavior from our kids and they don't draw the line. There's no boundaries. They say, yeah, parents, the reason why they're treating you this way is because they love you. I say, hey, the reason why they're treating you this way is they love you. You're their person. It needs to be addressed and processed in a proper way. The second point of the video is about how, that it really shows so much more about the coach, how his lack of fight, flight, or freeze says more about him, his coping skills. Think for a moment. How do you respond when your kids are deregulated? Do you become deregulated? Do you join the circus? When your kids are acting like children, do you act like a child? Do you end up debating with a 14-year-old because the 14-year-old wants to debate with you and get in some stupid argument with a 14-year-old over a stupid thing? I think good parenting is about really being the adult in a relationship. We've got to manage our emotions so they don't manage us. Our kids are going to be kids. That is tough to have a kid brain. That is tough to manage your emotions when you're playing basketball. If you're doing MMA fighting, if you're a 15-year-old, you're on a soccer field. If you're a 17-year-old and you're in a championship game, like that is tough. Now you still need to. We want to coach our kids to manage their emotions so they don't manage us. And of course, what the Gottmans talk about is constantly in our relationships with our kids, with our spouses, we have these things called ruptures. They're going to happen because you are imperfect and I am imperfect. We make mistakes. I'm going to read some of the comments that people wrote on my social media, and I want to chat about them real quick. Because there's this aura going on in my comments and on these videos about how we cannot tolerate this. This is so intolerable, unacceptable, which for the record, I'm not here to defend anybody. I don't really care about these players or any of this really. It's just, I care about parenting. He did come out and admit like this was unacceptable. This was wrong. He talked about it with his brother on a podcast. He admitted it. Not that maybe that matters to you. Maybe it doesn't. All I know is that I'm here to talk about parenting because our kids are going to do this to us. And how we respond really matters. How we respond to that chaos, their deregulation. The problem with this whole thing of like, we can never tolerate this from our children. We can never tolerate this from anyone is just not true. We can. And we actually can because we are that person. Do you want your spouse to have grace with you? Do you want them to forgive you when you make a mistake? Or do you want them to give you that same treatment? That when you act out, when you make a mistake, when you get intolerated, do you want them to say, I cannot handle this? Intolerable. You need to be punished. This can never, ever, 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 ever happen again. Just have that harshness with you. Because the reality is I'm holding up this piece of paper right here, and it has a list of things that kids and parents do. It's called the reactions. We all struggle with this list. This is not a list for bad people. This is what we do. We act out. We get anxious feelings in our bodies. We argue, cross-complain. We try to convince. We avoid. We blame. We label. We belittle. We poke. We put down. We We broadcast, we criticize, we caretake, we remind, we use dramatic language. We struggle with codependency. We command, we control, we direct, we remind, we make threats, we argue, defense, denial. This is what we do in a family. But it's how we process this really matters. How we think about this really matters. Here's a couple comments. Paige Nielsen said on my page, she says, I actually love what you said very much. There has to be room for grace, even for adults. We all make mistakes, especially when we're stressed and the stakes are high. I have so much respect for Andy Reid. Sonia said, I like this take. I'll read some of the negative takes too. If you've been following the Kelce brothers, you know they're very close to Andy Reid. The lack of reaction and the carrying reach for his arm, so the coach actually reached for the player's arm, shows their bond. It's rare. That's why people don't understand it. Right? So the next time your child rages at you or comes at you, you have every right to take a timeout. You have every right to say this is unacceptable. But you also can do what Andy Reid did right there, is just be the adult in the relationship, to not react back, just to process, to receive. Does that make you a punching bag? No. Does that mean you are allowing it? No. Does that mean that your kid is going to become a child abuser or abuse their girlfriend or boyfriend? No, it doesn't. What it means is that if you allow some people in your life to do this with you, it means that these people are very special to you. And so it means that there's grace there. There's a deeper connection there. It means there's trust there. You don't have to be perfect around me. One of the most interesting stats I've ever read is something that came out of the Gottmans. This is mind-blowing what I'm about to say. It's freaking mind-blowing. You know, I really struggled in my marriage for a long time, and we still have our tough days. And I was told early on that to be good at marriage, it's all about communication. I was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. I suck in communication. I got to get better. Communication. Yeah, communication. Yeah, you got to, okay, you can't say you language. You got to say I feel language. Okay. But the Gottmans, that's not what they found. They found in their study of happy, healthy, long-term marriages that many of these happy, healthy marriages, they had really bad communication, really bad, or a lack of communication. Isn't that interesting? And then I started reading and it started to make sense to me. You don't have to talk perfect in an amazing marriage. Isn't that just incredible? I don't have to talk perfect to my wife. She doesn't have to talk perfect to me. Like, I can handle it and she can handle it. I do not need my kids to be on their best behavior around me all the time. I'm a big boy. I can handle it. I have grace, understanding. You can say things I don't like you are this, you are this. Yeah, you did this to me. Yeah, it will bother me. I mean, I like it, but I'll get over it. Now, if it happens all the time, then yeah, we maybe have to do some work here together. Right? But this is like I think this is what it sounds like to be like healed and to be whole and to be like a good parent and to be like in that place of health, of a healthy marriage. I'm not sure completely, but I think so. I want off this planet 77 writes this. Okay, that was awkward. I was very impressed with Coach when I saw that. I chuckled and I thought, that tantrum didn't affect him one bit. It's Heidi Birch types this on my page. I mean, I'm talking like thousands of comments here. There's just a few of them. Interesting. I've seen so many write about how toxic this behavior is, and for Taylor to quote, run away from this guy. I like this take, right? Because yeah, of course, if he were to do that to a woman, she should run, of course. But this is something to think about. Like, if you see this behavior in an aggressive, like this is what the NFL is. It's the second most violent sport we have. Like, I mean, MMA is extremely violent. It's not for everybody. Like, if you're not into violence, you probably won't like the NFL. It's violent. And so the thing about it, what happens though, is that we see this alpha male aggressive guy hitting his coach like this. And I think for many people, it triggers us. It brings us back to a scary place. It makes us afraid for our own children. And then we react. And one of the ways we react is this coping mechanism of this can never happen, ever, 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 black and white. But that's not the way the world works. The Gottmans have helped us see that, even with that example. And this is really, I think, life-changing news for us parents. What would it be like if you just started saying to yourself, you know what? I don't need my kids to be perfect around me. Maybe there's fear for some of us. There's fear that maybe you'd raise a bad kid. Maybe there's fear that your culture or your family would judge you. Why do you let your kids talk to you this way? What the heck's wrong with you? Your kids are out of control. There's no respect here. But what if that actually is the greatest form of respect? What if the greatest form of respect is not great obedience? What if the greatest form of respect between two people is occasional disrespect? I think it's super clear in how Travis Kelce and Coach Andy Reid process this information for the whole world to see. They helped us understand like what it means to be in a trusting dynamic with someone you love. I mean, when I talk about love, these guys have been together for 10 years, everyone. 10 years of football, of life together. 10 years of life. There is so much love between these two men. There's actually even a previous video, you can find this, of Coach Andy Reid. He's like, they call him like a big walrus. Actually, he's very aggressive himself. He's a football coach, bumping into Travis Kelce. So the key to this is when these ruptures happen, how do we make amends? How do we restore the bond, reconcile? How do we restore it? Now, what you heard from both these players is public processing, how they've publicly processed it. And what you've also heard from both of them is that from Travis saying, yes, it was totally unacceptable. That should not happen. And I thought he was going to chew me out right there on the sideline. But what you actually, if you really listen to it, this is my opinion, of course, this is all my opinion, is that they actually didn't even need to make amends because they both understood like this is in the heat of the moment. We love each other. Things get crazy sometimes. This goes back to what the Gottmans were talking about. It doesn't have to be perfect all the time. You can just kind of go with the flow and be chill and just love each other and process each other. Here's Jennifer said this. I'm glad Coach Reid didn't go to the circus and blame Travis. No one other than the few select players will ever know what it's like to play in the Super Bowl and know what true frustration looks like. People are calling this an assault or domestic violence. It's truly taking away those who have actually been through true abuse and DV. Now, this is what we see, though, as parents. Climate Teach Amy says this. We teach our children with your help to not act out like this as adults. Hilarious. You even see this behavior as childlike because it is. He is a grown man and his coach is his boss, not his father. Your explanation proves just how wrong his actions are. Nora Pritchard has one of the most popular comments, and she types this, yikes. Respectfully, this is the first time I've ever disagreed with you. Relating it to parenthood is apples and oranges. This was an assault on that coach, okay? An assault, strong language right there, right? Like if you know, I'm on the basketball court of a 45-year-old man playing pickup hoops with a bunch of guys in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, things get crazy out there. It's not an assault, though. It's part of the culture of what we do. It's an agreeable culture. Another thing, change the coach to a woman, and what would you say? See, this is what's happening in our society. I think some of us have been so afraid and triggered that we're having a hard time processing these different spheres of our lives. And I think this is normal. I think we all are struggling with processing these spheres, because is it okay for a 8-year-old child to come up to you and just really go off on you? Well, depends on who you ask. I would say yes, occasionally. I can handle that. It happens. But would I say like once a week? No. Once a day? No. What if he's hitting me or she's hitting me? No, they're 8. That could really hurt. But what about if the child's 18? Well, no way. The tolerance should go way lower. So it's just, we all have to decide like where our boundaries are or where our lines are. And you've got to decide like what is tolerable for you and what is healthy. How can we, I think this is probably the biggest takeaway, then I'll wrap it up. I think, how can we be our kids' people where they do feel safe around us? They don't feel like they have to walk on eggshells, but they know there's a line. And I think many of us struggle with that line. We struggle with the line because there's no line for many people. They're just these punching bags, and they let their kids walk all over them, dehumanize them, just treat them like an Uber driver, like a butler, like a piece of trash. All because the parent says, this is what I thought I was supposed to do. I thought this is good parenting in 2024. I'm supposed to like love them and be there for them. My kids have been through so much. I thought I was supposed to be their refuge. No, there's that line. You're missing the line there. You're missing the line. Or the other line, which is being like more an authoritarian style, which is never, I would never, ever excuse this, ever, 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 never, never, ever. Like here's a comment from about a dad. Cesar Perez writes this: I always agree. In this case, I disagree. He's writing to me. I would never allow my daughter, think about this. I wish he was here listening. I could hear what he has to say. I would never allow my daughter to knock me off balance and lash out at me like that. Okay. Well, okay. So, all right. You would not let your daughter, Caesar, do this to you. Well, okay. Well, what would you do? Would you push her? Would you cuss her out? Would you spank her, punish her, take her phone away? Yeah, what does that mean? And like, are you afraid of your daughter? Is your daughter gonna hurt you? Like, I don't know. It's just, where is your line, Caesar? Yeah, I get it. Yeah, you don't want your daughter to hit you. You don't want your daughter to hit anyone. I understand, he says, that it's trustable. It's only because he's emotionally immature that he would act this way. See this judgment there? It's like, this is what we do. We judge people without looking in our own mirror. So you're saying, Caesar, you said you would never mismanage your emotions ever around your daughter? You're telling me, Caesar, you would never use defensiveness, denial, dishonesty, earnest mode, escalation, exaggeration, fact-finding. You never have hopelessness, humor, innocent victim, isolating. Oh, Sean, those things are not as bad. Oh, Sean, those are bad. That's not as bad as cussing someone out. That's what we do. That's what we do. Then we compare our reactions versus other people's reactions. Say, okay, mine are not as bad as your reactions, right? Yeah, you went up to a coach and you bumped him, a coach that you pretty much is like a father figure to you for 10 years. That's bad. Me, I just drink too much wine. I just gossip. I just raise my voice. I just avoid. This is not as bad. So this is what we do. Isn't that interesting? And so I don't really have any answers for any of us today. I just think that this is an important thing to think about and to grow in. How do we do this? How do we be these loving, safe people who our kids feel safe with and we're their person? But then we have this healthy line where amends need to be made, boundaries need to be set, proper discipline might need to take place. We're always teaching people how we want to be treated. And so how do we respond, not react? How do we teach and mentor, not scold? How do we guide versus withdraw in these craziness of parenting deregulated children? Parents, thank you for letting me be a positive voice in your life. I love you and I love your family. If you're sick and tired of those same painful patterns in your parenting or the same painful bad behaviors in your kids, then what are you waiting for? Join me in my VIP membership. I'd love to speak with you and give you the specific tools that you need.